Call a council meeting to order for tonight. Roll call, please.
Council members Anderson.
Here.
Benega.
Yes.
Brown.
Here.
Costello.
Here.
Jameson.
Here.
Knutson.
Yes, here.
Litz. Staggers.
Present.
And Mayor Munson.
Here. Quorum present tonight. Tonight will be led in the invocation by Pastor Dennis Thomas of the Free Methodist Church in Sioux Falls. After the invocation, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, I'd ask everyone to please rise.
James 1:5, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. It will be given to him. Let's look to the Lord in prayer. Lord, we acknowledge you as our Creator, our Redeemer, our Lord, and our friend, and we thank you. We thank you that you've blessed this city with people, with prosperity, with peace, and we're grateful, Lord, for the privilege of living in this community. And we need your wisdom and direction. We ask you to bless this meeting tonight with your divine presence and grace and wisdom. Help this council to make right decisions and to come to a unanimity in the things that are decided and discussed tonight. We pray this the only way we can, by the merits of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a proclamation night for World Refugee Day. And Clara Hart, we have some folks that would like to come up. Please come forward. Kadir Aware, come on. I want to thank you all for coming down here tonight. And we have a proclamation that reads, whereas every year on June 20th, the world honors the courage, resilience, and strength of refugees. On the 70th anniversary of the United Nations designated World Refugee Day, thousands of organizations and hundreds of countries will come together to focus global attention not only on the plight of refugees and the causes of their exile, but also on their determination and will to survive and on the contributions they make to their host community. Whereas refugees flee their country not for economic gain, but to escape persecution, the threat of imprisonment, and even threats to their lives. They need a safe haven where they can recover from mental and physical trauma and rebuild their hopes for a better future. Whereas the global theme of World Refugee Day is refugee protection, whereas protection also means that refugees receive food, shelter, and medical care, that their rights are respected, including rights to education and freedom of movement. Now, therefore, Dave Munson, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim June 20th, 2008 as World Refugee Day in Sioux Falls, and let us recognize them for the richness and diversity they bring to our community. Congratulations. Okay, we'll get started here. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so move. Knutson.
Knutson moves. Is there a second?
Second, Benninger.
Benninger seconds. Further comments or further motions?
Mr. Mayor, I move to take item number 2 and move it to the regular agenda right before item number 3 and to change the date from August 4th to August 11th.
Okay, that's your motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Benninga.
Benninga seconded that motion. Motion been made, seconded. Further comments? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion will vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson. Yes. Staggers.
Yes.
That motion been approved. Item number 2 on the consent agenda will be moved above number 3 on the regular agenda. Further motions? Seeing none, we've got a motion made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as amended. All in favor of that motion will vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson. Yes. Staggers.
Yes.
Consent agenda has been approved, 7 yes, 1 excused, as amended. Now we are on the regular agenda, item number 2. Do we have to make a motion? Oh, yeah. That's the next step. We got a motion to approve the regular agenda as amended.
So moved.
Brown, is there a second?
Second, Costello.
Costello, second. Further comments, further motions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the regular agenda as amended will vote yes. Those opposed, no.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson. Yes. Staggers.
Yes.
All members present voted. The regular agenda has been approved, 7 yes, as amended. Now is the time that we set aside a period of 5 minutes for anyone that wishes to address the council. We just ask that they give their name and address, and if anyone wants to come forward to approach and discuss anything.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Staley. I live at 1621 South Van Ness Avenue. And I'm here tonight as a concerned citizen about the fee increase that's being proposed. I just heard a segment on the news tonight, and Mark Cotter was talking, and he was saying that the city is in the same situation as many of our citizens are
Teresa,
about.
Could I just interrupt here for a minute? If we're going to be taking those up here shortly, if you want to wait until we get into that discussion.
You're going to let me come back for 5 minutes
Yeah, because there'll
then?
be public input on each one of them.
Okay.
So if you do that, thank you
that's
very
fine.
much. I appreciate it. Others that wish to address the council for a period of 5 minutes, and name and address. If not, then we'll move forward with the regular agenda, item number 2.
Set a proposed resolution adopting the 2009-2013 capital program.
And to set the date for, was August 11th, you said?
Yes, sir.
Yep, and so that's set the date for August 11th. Are there further comments on that motion? All in favor of setting the hearing date for August 11th will vote yes. Those opposed, no.
Was there a motion?
Well, you get a motion.
I just made that motion.
Okay, you did. Is
I'll
there a
second.
Costello seconded. Further comments? Not all in favor of the motion, set the hearing date, vote yes. Those opposed, no.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
All members present voted. The hearing date is set for August 11th for item number 2. Now let's move to item number 3.
Deferred action 2008-2009 renewal of the retail malt beverage license for Lydia Investment Corporation, Easy Dough Casino, 2309 West 12th Street, including video lottery terminals. Number 4, new 2008-09 retail malt beverage license for Sanaz 8th Street and Gourmet LLC, Sanaz 8th Street Gourmet, to be operated at 401 East 8th Street, number 100, effective 7/1/08, Railroad Center, PD. Number 5, new 2008-09 retail malt beverage license for Spazia's Incorporated, Spazia's, to be operated at 4801 South Louise Avenue, effective 7/1/08, with the special use permit approved on 5/7/08. Subject to final inspection per Fire, Health, and Building Services. Item 6, transfer of a 2008 retail wine license from Spazia's Incorporated, Spazia's, 1716 Southwestern Avenue, to Spazia's Incorporated, Spazia, to be operated at 4801 South Louise Avenue, effective 7/1/08, with the special use permit approved on 5/7/08, subject to final inspection per Fire, Health, and Building Services. Item 7, new 2008-09 retail malt beverage license for Guan Dan Pho Nguyen to be operated at 1100 West 12th Street effective 7/1/08 with a conditional use permit approved on 5/7/08. Transfer of a 2007-08 retail malt beverage license from Ben Nguyen New Asian Food Market, 315 South Range Avenue, to Guan Dan New Asian Food Market to be operated at 315 South Range Avenue. Item 9, transfer of a 2008 retail liquor license from Classic Foods Limited, Ground Round, 1301 West 41st Street, to United Express GR LLC, Ground Round Restaurant, to be operated at 1301 West 41st Street, including Sunday sales and video lottery terminals, effective 6/25/08, in operation prior to see conditional use permit regulations. Item 10, transfer of a 2008 retail liquor license from 50/50 Holdings Incorporated, Wiley's Tavern, 330 North Main Avenue, to TNT Entertainment, Wiley's Tavern, to be operated at 330 North Main Avenue, including Sunday sales and video lottery terminals, with the conditional use permit issued in 1999. Item 11, transfer of a 2008-09 retail malt beverage license from Grevlar LLC, Blue Moon Casino, 1704 West 41st Street, to Moon 41 LLC, Gold Nugget 2, to be operated at 1704 West 41st Street, including video lottery terminals, effective 7/1/08, in operation prior to CUP regulations. Item 12, special one-day liquor license request for Washington Pavilion Management Incorporated, Washington Pavilion of Arts and Science, 301 South Main Avenue, on June 21st, 2008, for a wedding reception. Item 13, special one-day liquor license request for Great Bear Recreation Park Incorporated, Great Bear Recreation Park, to be operated at 5901 East Rice Street on July 19th, 2008, for a wedding reception, and canceling the request for June 21st, 2008, approved on 4/21/08. Item 14, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Ronald McDonald House Charities to be operated at Falls Park in the area of 5th and Phillips on September 20th, 2008, for the Taste of South Dakota. Item 15, various retail malt beverage and packaged malt beverage license renewals for 2008-09 to be operated at various locations in the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, identified as Exhibit C.
Okay, Lori.
All right, thank you, Denise. Lori Hogstead with the City Finance Office. I thought maybe we could talk about item number 3 first. This item was deferred from the meeting of May 19th so that the applicant could come in and sign his paperwork. He has not come in. I sent him a certified letter. He did not accept the certified letter. So our only option at this time is just to withdraw this item and no action taken.
Okay, it'll be noted that we withdraw item number 3.
Okay, and then items 4 through 14. The only comment I have is on item number 9, and this is for the transfer for the ground round. We have an effective date listed of 6/25/08, and that date has now been moved back to 7/15/08. And I can answer questions on items 4 through 14, and then we'll take item 15 separately.
Anyone wish to address the council on any of those items from 4 to 14? If not, if it would be okay with the council if we would just take items 4 through 8 and hold item 9 and vote on that separately, and then take 10 through 14. If we could do that, then a member would have to excuse themselves on item number 9. But if we could take those all in one vote, if that's the wishes of the council, then we could have a motion that way.
So moved, Costello.
Costello moves. Is there a second?
Second, Benninger.
Is there further comments on any of those items from item 4 to 14, and we will hold 9 until later? Not. All in favor to approve items 4 through 8 and 10 through 14 will vote yes. Those opposed vote no.
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
All members present voted 7 yes, 1 excused. Now, Council Member Costello will be deferred from, excused from item number 9. Is there any other questions on item number 9, or is there a motion to approve it?
Move for approval, Benninger.
Benninger moved. Is there a second?
Second, Anderson.
Kenny Anderson moved to second it. Further comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve item 9, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Item 9 has been approved, 7 yes, 2 excused. Item 15.
All right, item 15 is the various retail malt beverage and packaged malt beverage renewals. This is Exhibit C, which is the third and final list of renewals. The color-coded copy that you have in front of you is just for the package, which we will go over in just a minute. There are 14 retail malt beverage renewals, and there are no stipulations on any of the retail malt beverage renewals. As we do with the packaged malt beverage renewals, we save those that have had underage sales throughout the past 12 months for the same meeting so we can cover it all at one time. And what I've done with these, I've grouped the businesses together so that you can see a history. For instance, if Casey's has 5 different stores, you can see the history from all of the stores. And I put together a 5-year history. I have information dating back further, but generally we just present 5 years. And then also I've listed behind the items in the 5th column, I have listed which date the sting was held, so you can get an idea when the sting was held. Questions? Did you have a question for me? Okay. Vernon?
Go ahead, Vernon.
Lori, the first one, C-store services, you have a notation there about the license being suspended. That was done by the state, I assume, because of the 3 violations in the last year?
Exactly. If they have had more than 2 underage sales within 24 months, then the license is suspended. And that is done by the state. They can suspend for up to 60 days, but generally they suspend for 14 days, as was the case with that particular one. You did receive copies of their security management plans for each of the businesses on the list, and Police Officer Greg Schmidt went through all of the security management plans and gave his A-OK to those. I do have individuals present for all of the items. There are 3 on the list that do not have underage sales that just were not able to get their paperwork in on time, and those are just the blank columns. In the very last column, the IU General Store was one, the New Asian Food Market, and then on the next page, the very last one for Mexican Store. So if you'd like, we can go through each one. We'll just start with the first one, and then if you'd like them to come up, just let me know. And they're also up on the screen, and Dave has been kind enough to run that for me and point those out. We have C-Store Services, Inc., and the violations that we're really looking at tonight are the 07 and 08. And in this case, for the 07, that was from the sting of October 3rd of 07, and that license did get suspended. John Weir is here, the applicant. If you would like to hear from him, I can sure have him come up.
Wishes of the council.
Okay.
Not, let's move on.
All right, I'll just go on. And then we have CFJ Properties for Flying J. They had 1 underage violation in the sting of 10/3/07. We have Casey's Stores, and we had 2 stings from 07, and they were both the same day, October 3rd, 07. We have John Falls for his Shell Station, and that was also in 07. That was a sting of December 5. We have GT Express, and they had 1 violation from October 3rd of 07. Gas Barrel, 1 from October 3rd of 07. We have the Shop and Cart North, and that was from the sting of December 5 of 07. We have Franklin Food Market, October 3rd of 07. The next page, we have the I-90 Fuel Services for the various gas stops, and they actually have 4 that we're looking at in this time period. There was the very first one at the Cliff Avenue store was from the sting in June 5th. We had 1 in 07 from the sting of December 5. We had 1 at the South Cliff store from the sting of 2/26/08, and also 1 at the Kiwanis Avenue store from the sting of 3/10/08. Come and go stores, there are 4 also there to look at. There's 1 from 07 from 10/3/07, 1 from 4/23/08, 6/05/08, and then 3/10/08. So they had 3 in 08 and 1 in 07. And then we have Laverne Supermarkets for the Sunshine Foods. We have the Sunshine Food Store at 530 South 2nd Avenue. That was from the sting of October 3rd. And then the Amico Food Shop also from the sting of October 3rd of 07.
Further questions of Lori? on any of those? Go ahead, Vern.
When the state suspends a license, as the one you pointed out, is it per location you're talking about when it's 3 within 2 years, or per company?
It would be per location.
Okay.
That's a good question, per location.
Thank you, Lori.
Further questions on any of the items that Lori discussed? Not. Is anyone wishes to address the council on any items that were discussed? Not. What's the council wishes on item number 15?
Move to approve, Costello.
Costello motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Jameson.
Jameson seconded. Further comments on the motion to approve item number 15? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Yes. Opposed? No.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
All members present voted 7 yes, 1 excused. Item number 15, the items have been approved. Let's go to item 16.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by amending the schedule of rates to be charged by the City Light and Power Department for furnishing electric current for light and power purposes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we bring you the second reading of the rate packages that we've seen in the past. As you know, that this is, as we look at the cost of the operations, these are a cost of service-based analysis. Also, not only the operation expenses, but also the capital plan, which is a 5-year plan, is a part of the analysis to make sure that we have funds that are self-sufficient, that stand alone, and can manage the expenses of the business. One of the things that we showed you, that not only have we got a consistent approach on the assumptions, but also the consultants that we've hired. They are the experts, and we have all but one of them here this evening. I think one of the things we always look back as we compare the cost of our utilities with the other utilities in the region, or even in the expanded region, in many cases about 75% of the other utilities have higher rates than the City of Sioux Falls. The other last piece of this, as we introduced tonight, is that these rates do not become effective until January of 2009. And so, as with anything, we make assumptions to make sure that we're hopefully positioned well when we get to them. And so tonight's first item is for raising the light rates. Again, this is an overall revenue increase of 7%. This is the only fund that you'll see a difference in of what we projected last year. We projected a 5% increase. As many of us know, one of the key costs of this utility is purchase power. The water levels on the Missouri River remain low, and so we've still have to base a lot of our expenses on what we will actually have as purchase power cost. So that is the small incremental difference that you've seen, different from last year to this year, and it is a 7% increase. We do have Blair Metzger with DGR here if you have any questions for he or I.
Questions of Mark D.
You know, Mark, a question I have is that I sometimes worry that our proposed increases are actually too low. And I think about an article that I read in today's paper, the Argus, but then there was a feature story in USA Today, and I'll just read one paragraph. Utilities across the United States are raising power rates by up to 29%, mostly to pay for soaring fuel costs, but also to build plants and refurbish an aging power grid. And it goes on to just indicate that this is a problem across the country. So anyway, so it's not a question for you, it's just a comment that I hope this proposed rate is high enough.
Other questions of Mark on item number 16? Not others that wish to address the council on item number 16? Okay, excuse me, Kermit.
Yeah. Mark, I just have a question that deals with this, but also the others too. And that's in regard to the reserves which we're trying to build up for each of these enterprise funds.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told, and I just wanted to get your response, that when we have these reserve funds for electric and water and so forth, that if we really want to, those reserve funds can be switched around. In other words, reserve funds from electric can go to water, and water reserve funds can go to sewer and all that. Is that correct?
Well, I think, at least from one of the most recent council actions, is that there is a balanced budget resolution. And the last paragraph of that balanced budget resolution, as we receive it, is that really those enterprise funds, as we've consistently treated them, should stand alone. So at the end of the year, you can look at your rate revenue, your expenses from operating, and also expenses from capital, and then see what is the cash equivalents available for the future years to make sure that you're maintaining those facilities. You know, one of the things that you'll see in many municipalities is that once we put a utility in, it begins to depreciate. It's also out there in the elements, and so one of the things that occurred last year is that you'll have people come to council that request something to be moved forward in a given year. And one of the things that, as we manage utilities, there's just a number of factors that I think that it gives you a lot of good data on a monthly basis if we continue to keep those enterprise funds as standalone, separate, and not pool cash equivalents.
Yes. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think that these reserve funds should be really kind of in a lockbox, so that the electric fund, reserve fund is in a lockbox, and the water's in a lockbox, and so forth down the line. But from what you just said, I'm not really quite sure they are in a lockbox, because it seemed that you indicated this should be the case, not that it is the case. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, I do think it is the case. I think one of the things that we try to look at is, as we manage the capital of each utility, is that we also have to keep in mind that we've got over 70 square miles of utilities that at any given time could show some unforeseen piece of wear, or a capital project that may warrant moving it up based on some given circumstance. And so I think one of the things that we've got is we put plans together. We put a 5-year capital plan together. But there are other elements that come to each utility out of our control. And so reserve funds are used for a number of things, and one of them is to make sure that the capital, the infrastructure that's in the field, that we can maintain it and that these funds can truly stand alone.
Okay, and I don't want to belabor this, but just one final clarification. So in the future, we're not going to have any funds from the reserves for each department, each enterprise being transferred elsewhere. We're just going to keep them within that enterprise fund itself.
That's the consistent way that we manage the utilities.
Okay.
Further comments on item 16?
I guess,
go ahead.
Once again, this is another question that kind of deals with all these funds. Thanks for the information that you sent here about, in response to some questions that we had last week. I really appreciate that a lot.
You're welcome.
There was one part in your response here in regard to 2007, 2009 operating revenue expenses and reserve values. And taking a look at this, you have down like the reserves for the light for 2007, $1.2 million approximately. Mm-hmm. And then the reserve for the sanitary landfill, roughly $6 million, water 6.3, and then water rec at 3.2, roughly. And those are actuals, reserves. But in adding those up, it came up to be about $16 million that we had in reserves for all of those enterprise funds. And then taking a look at what we were targeting for reserve funds for the future, like 50% for light, 25% for sanitary, 25% for water purification, and 25% for water rec, I came up that we wanted to get $10 million in reserves. So I guess my question is, 2007 we had an actual $16 million, but now we're starting for $10 million, and this is one of the justifications for the rate increases.
And we can certainly talk about each utility individually. And again, these are consistent with the assumptions that we made several years ago to actually move forward. Again, in many cases, we're not at those desired targets. But for example, light and power, we asked Blair Metzger to source other utilities in the area to give you a barometer of what their targets are on the reserve. And so we can certainly bring Blair up here to highlight that.
Blair Metzger, DGR Engineers. As Mark said, I did do some checking with some other municipal utilities of similar size in the area. I work for a number of them, so I've got their information. City of Algona, Iowa, which is a much smaller community, but a same size electric utility, has a target of 100% in reserves of their operating expense. Spencer, Iowa, another municipal utility, has almost 200% in reserves. So it's not at all out of place to have the 50% that we were proposing here. There were quite a few other ones that I checked that had that as their target, 50%. So, and a lot of them actually exceeded that. Most electric utilities, because of the nature of the business, both in terms of capital needs and also power supply costs, like to keep at least 50%, if not more. And so that's pretty standard throughout this area, throughout the industry.
Further questions? Go ahead.
Okay, for example, on the light and power, last year, actual 2007 was $1,173,260. Okay, now we've always been told, we've got a plan ahead, so we have reserves, and in this case, you're pointing out we want to get to a reserve of $3.5 million, 50%. Okay, this year we're forecasting $809,389. Okay, now, I guess when I think of building up reserves, I think of, starting off here to base and then adding a little bit here and adding up. And we are raising these rates, but the forecasted reserve for this year is down substantially.
Should you show that slide? Let's show that one slide.
You can address it maybe verbally on cost line. I've got the full presentation of last week, but we hid several slides, so as you request certain information, I'll just go in and unhide those respective slides.
What's happening in 2008 is a good example of why you want to have some reserves, is because this year we have unexpected power supply cost increases, plus some fairly major capital expenditures. And so we're dipping below where we want to be by quite a bit. Originally, we had anticipated building that consistently throughout the years, but it's, as you can see, it's actually going to drop this year. So that's the reason why we want to get there. And I think if we can get this slide up, that will show, if you look at that slide, that we put that together, the red line is where we want to be. That's our target of 50%. And the green bars are showing how we hope to get there and how we're doing. And as you can see, from 2007 to 2008, we actually dropped, just like those numbers showed in that handout. But that if we implement the rate increases, which are reflected in that blue line, over the next few years, we're working our way up toward where we want to be. Hopefully by 2013 is what we're targeting. And to do it in a stair-step fashion, that we don't do it all in one big increase. We try to do it over time.
So we did have an increase this year of 8.6%.
Yes.
And so once again, you're attributing the loss to the increased cost for the power from WAPA.
That's a substantial part of it, yes.
And then you also mentioned a cap. But this right here is not supposed to include capital projects funded with user funds.
I think what this shows, this shows is the actual cash uses, which includes capital. So in order to get to the 809 in the bottom there, that includes revenues and expenses and capital costs.
It says expenses do not include capital projects funded with user funds.
Right, that's the expense, but not reflection in the reserve. One of the things that allows you to run a utility and actually allow you to get the best use of those reserves in high capital years, you plan to go into those reserves. You can do a couple of different things, Councilor Staggers, is that some utilities, based on the cost of the improvement, we will go to the debt market to use a bond to smooth out those costs. In some cases that we've done that you'll see in lights and sanitary landfill, we've done those in some cases with cash. And so, and the same thing that's occurring here is that when we have a capital expense, if it's not what we would consider reasonably large enough to go to the debt market, then we'll actually go into that reserve. It also allows us to not look statically at 1 year, but truly where we want to be in 5 years. And just to make sure that we kind of have that risk tolerances, at what point at the end of the year do we need those cash reserves at to then start the next year? And so, for a couple of reasons, we wouldn't want to start having, significant up and down spikes in rate increases. We would rather have a more smoothing effect of rate increases for a residential user and then utilize that reserve fund as we have capital expenses, but also unforeseen operating expenses that allows us to smooth through those. And again, allowing us to look at this every year gives you that insight about where those cash equivalents are at the end of the year, what some of those assumptions have been. Those assumptions haven't changed when we started this. And again, we look at having a 6-month reserve fund in the light department based on what some of the replacement pieces cost as running a responsible utility. Now that'll be different when Steve Burrian with AE2S speaks to you, is because the numbers are different fairly significantly when you look at running a water and then coupled with a water rec utility, because they essentially have the same users. Because once you buy water, then you accordingly pay for your sewer. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I would caution you, don't look at it from a static perspective, is that as Blair's graph shows, is that as we try to pull down and smooth out the rates, we are also going to try to utilize those reserves as best we can, as responsibly as we can, to make sure that long term we reach the targets that we believe are prudent and responsible in running these utilities.
Further questions? Not others that wish to address the council on item number 16? Yep, right. Well, we're going through each one individually, so you'll have a chance. This is just one of 4 more to go. So we're just taking.
Yeah.
You'd have to just talk on each one individually if you would. Well, I guess I can. Well, no, you'd have more time than that. But do you want to just talk about all of them? If you want to do it, I'll give you the latitude on that one. So you're going to talk about 16 through 20?
Yeah, I'll talk,
okay.
Right.
Okay.
And as I said, I'm Teresa Staley. I live at 1621 South Van Epps, and I'm here as a concerned citizen. I heard Mark talking on the 6 o'clock news tonight about these increases and saying that the city is in the same bind as many residents are, how the economy is affecting how it's being operated. And I'm glad I had a chance just to hear you talk about this reserve issue, and you're comparing us to these smaller cities. And we are a very affluent city. We have great prosperity in this city. In fact, we have somewhat of a country club mentality in certain segments of our city. And with all this revenue, why wouldn't we pride ourselves on having lower fees? Why do we have to say we have to have higher fees? Let's be using this revenue to help our citizens out. And he's talking about this reserve. A great way to increase the reserve would be to tax into that sales tax revenue, which some of you new people on the council will hear about the CIP budget. Lots of money coming in, lots of big projects being funded. Also, we could help that reserve by cutting the wasteful spending, showing the taxpayers that we are really serious about balancing things out. Last month, the City Council did a wonderful thing by voting against a sales tax increase. And you showed that you are sensitive to all the citizens in our city. Myself included, we're struggling with gas prices, food prices. Now, a lot of you probably, it's not bothering you. It hasn't affected you, but it has affected many people in our city. And these fee increases are sort of a tax. $10 a month is what they're proposing. That's a lot for a lot of people, $120 a year, in addition to that rate increase we just had. And I say, hey, hold back, dig down, and show us that you're being accountable with our money. We have a lot of money for extras. We're spending, $1 million for McKinnon Park. I'm not against McKinnon Park, but we have money for that. We have money for the facade program downtown. We have money for the ballparks, the pavilion, all these extras. But then when it comes to these fees and our basic essentials, we're raising the rates. It just doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make sense to a lot of people I've been visiting with. So I feel that it's crunch time. I feel that it's time for the City Council to show us that they're good stewards of our money, show us that you have respect for our taxpayer dollars, and that you care about the quality of life for all of our citizens, and that you're going to take the action that it takes to provide the best services at the best cost. Thank you.
Thanks, Therese. Questions of Therese? Thank you. Others that want to address the council on item number 16? Seeing no one come forward, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve item number 16.
Knutson moved. Is there a second?
Brown seconds.
Okay, Brown seconds. Further comments on the motion to approve item 16? Go ahead.
Well, when it comes to the light and power, I guess I am sensitive to the concerns here that we're buying this power from WAPA, from the dams on the Missouri River, and they are charging us a lot more just because of the lower water levels. They are producing less electricity. So without great enthusiasm, I am going to be voting for this particular measure.
Further comments? Got a motion been made and seconded? Go ahead, Vern.
Actually, I'm going to address all of these, too, because I think there is some confusion about how city utilities operate different than the rest of city government. These are, you pay for what you use. To do otherwise would be, we talk about subsidies sometimes as a group, that would be the worst form of subsidy, to have taxpayers subsidize these services, because it would be like me being conservative with my water and my neighbor abusing it, and me subsidizing their abuse of it. So that's why these are separate and different.
Okay, further comments when the motion been made and seconded to approve item 16? I see no further discussion. All in favor of the motion to approve, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
All members present have voted, 7 yes, 1 excused. Item 16 has been approved. Item 17.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 18 thereof to increase rates at the landfill in Sections 18-30A 3-4 and 18-30B 3-5 with an effective date of January 1st, 2009.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. Again, these tipping fee increases were discussed at great length last week, and the MSW, which is municipal solid waste, is proposed to go up $2 a ton. We also are doing the out of the area at the same rate, which is an additional $2 a ton. C&D, which is construction and demolition, is also going up $2 per ton, and the $96.50 reflects a $2 increase as well for the out of area.
Go ahead.
Mark, my understanding regarding tipping fees is that our current rates and our proposed rates are still pretty much in the middle of other cities our size in the Midwest. I mean, that they are hardly exorbitant they are like, if anything, too low. Is that correct?
Well, I think it is, and I can certainly bring that area slide back up if you wish. But it is, we do believe it's obviously a very heavily and regulated area that we manage, and we do believe that this is a responsible rate increase. This is also in line with what we projected last year for this enterprise fund.
Further questions on market item number 17. Go ahead, Kermit.
Yes, on this one here, Mark, we had the reserve for 2007 being $6,068,817. And then for 2008, we're projecting $1,027,469. And then for 2009, we're projecting $410,841. And then we had the expenses going up. I don't want to read all these numbers. It gets a little old. But we have the expenses going up for this year in comparison to last year. But then in 2009, they're forecast to go down. But then for the revenue, we start off at $6.5 million for 2007 actual, going to $8 million this year, and then $9 million. So we're having revenue increases, and then we're also expenses are not too bad, but we do have a drastic reduction in reserves.
I can address that, Mayor. I think one of the things, too, that I don't have for you on this particular utility, and we can bring that, is that this is another utility, much like the Light Department, that we have used cash equivalents to do capital projects. And we've made that decision based on the amount of the capital project. One of the things that you'll start to see is as we come out of this trend, because we are using cash this year to afford to smooth out this rate, to stay consistent with what we told you, but really we believe that it's responsible as we come out of this swing, as we close the existing area that we're in, as we populate that area with gas wells, as we build the landfill gas project to Poet, that once we get those capital expenses accomplished, and then with the additional revenue that we'll see, you'll start to quickly see us get to our target and then really have a very good, stable, and responsible utility as we get out there in that 2011-12 and really be consistent. And so here again, another opportunity for us. We made the decision to use cash to do several large capital projects as opposed to going and issuing smaller bond to go to the debt market. And so, again, it's still a very nominal increase. We're still very competitive in the area, and you'll really see the smoothing of this fund as we go forward next year. We're expecting a $1 increase next year, and if things stay in line with our assumptions, we'll stay at that tipping fee rate. One of the other pieces that we've talked about is that really how does $2 per ton equivalent affect an individual residential owner. And truly the tipping fee, that's where your hauler takes your solid waste to the landfill. And so we expect that about 30% of that tipping fee, 30% of your cost is directly attributed to the tipping fee, which will be just under 50 cents more per month.
Go ahead, Kermit.
Yeah, I guess for the year 2009, for the expenses, it's $5.7 million. So Mark, are you saying that includes capital improvement projects in that expenses, or?
It doesn't. That's what. Anytime we put together a table, and we'll talk more about it in the water and water reclamation, but in a fairly short time to try to generate a table without to show you everything that's in these detailed, fairly complex models is that we qualify them and we footnote them. And so, I mean, we certainly have the detail, but just understand as we manage a fund like this, we have so many inputs of revenue. We have so much for operating expense. Then we have capital. And anytime, for example, this year we'll excavate a new cell, we'll close more portions of the active area, and then we'll also work on getting that pipeline to Poet. And so those are fairly high spikes in capital that we footnoted to come out of there. But again, to have the discussion on what we believe is a responsible reserve level, we're going to get there and really allow us to, if we have an unforeseen expense come up, the goal is to be able to work into that reserve and then come back out and have a very smooth effect on rates going forward.
Go ahead.
So for 2009, $5.7 million does not include capital projects. Is that right?
That's right.
So then for 2009, we're just simply taking money from the reserves for capital. Is that right? For capital improvement projects.
What you're seeing there is you do see a fairly significant amount of revenue as it relates to the expenses, and you're not seeing the difference there in the reserve. Again, there's a number of details here that we try to equate and give you a table that at least has some consistencies with it, but we do not have the capital in there. We can certainly provide that to you. You've got it in your capital improvement plan for the 5-year. And again, as you manage a utility, you may be 1 year or 2 years in advance of a major capital expense, and those are some of the things you need to prepare for and then come out of. And one of the key decisions is how will you pay for that capital expense? And will you go to the debt market, or will you try to do that with cash? And so this utility's seen fairly significant increases years back, and now we truly are getting to be a very smooth, reasonable rate increases.
Further questions?
So if I could just...
Do you have one more then?
Yeah, just one quick one.
Okay.
I'm still just trying to figure this out, Mark. So you're saying the reason we're going to have such a low reserve in 2009 in that fund is just simply because there's some other factors that, other than expenses and capital improvements?
We're going to go into that reserve because one of the factors is the cost of the capital as we've estimated it. Now, again, if those estimates are low or high, that allows us to manage those construction projects as we go forward. Again, I think we've talked a lot about that we've had very favorable construction bids this year, but we're starting to see that correction occur on several of our capital projects. And again, anytime you make assumptions this far in advance of a rate increase, we have to, I think, be very consistent with the assumptions that we use, and that, again, manage the utility or enterprise fund as responsibly as we can. And again, these tipping fees will become effective with your support on January 1.
Obviously, Mark, none of us remember the 5-inch thick book that you present us on capital improvement programs every year, but could you remind me if, in fact, we used cash reserves to acquire the property around the landfill that became available last year?
We did.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
Okay, Mark, also I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. For some of these capital outlays that we've been discussing here, you've been using cash for that also, not doing bonds or anything else. Is that correct?
That's right. We've had, this council has seen very few grant or loan programs come before it for this enterprise fund. We have, in small accords, been able to go to the DNR into a fund that all the landfills pay into, and then you can borrow against that. But that's been in very fairly low amounts with regard to the amount of capital that we put in. Some of the things that you've certainly seen recently is all the improvements to the public drop-off area, the composting area, but some of the backbone of the landfill with closing, populating with more wells, and then also now excavating for cell 2 for the expansion. Those are certainly large capital expenses that, again, this fund sustains itself, self-sufficient, and we believe that it's a reasonable rate increase.
Further questions of Mark on item 17? Let's go to Greg and then Vernon.
Mark, you talked a lot about spending, but what about savings? What have you guys been doing out there besides selling the gas to help reduce expenses? Is there anything you can share?
Well, in some areas, we've got opportunity to save dollars, for example, fuel. But in many cases, we've got the size of the equipment, the volume of material that comes in. We still have to do our due diligence and compact the waste. One of the things that we've been able to on a Saturday when there's fewer haulers, we can go down to one compactor, which, incrementally helps. Those are large 80,000-pound compactors that use a lot of fuel, and so that's been one of the opportunities that we've been using to save expense.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up, what could regular customers do to help the city in those expenses? I mean, could we recycle more? Would that help?
Absolutely. The lower waste stream that comes to landfill is the less waste that we have to compact, but it's also the areas that we're now going to excavate, sell to position ourselves for the waste that's going to come in future years. If those cells last longer, we don't necessarily then have to go and excavate cell 3. And so obviously recycling, I think, has been very well accepted. There's been some new technology in many areas, and so we're just, there's something I think everyone can do.
Mark, just to clarify a point you were talking about, by positioning the city, these enterprise funds, these quasi-businesses with a reasonable amount of reserves, it saves taxpayers in the long run from having to incur debt for the city, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Further questions of Mark on item number 17? Is there others that wish to address the council on item number 17? If not, is there council discussion or action on item 17?
Move for approval, Benninga.
Benninga moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Jameson.
Jameson seconded. Further comments on the motion to approve 17? Go ahead, Kermit.
Well, on this one, I'm having a more difficult time because last year we had reserves of $6 million. Our target is to have $1.2 million in reserves. This year, we're forecasted to have $1,027,469 in reserves, and then we're going to go down really significantly next year, 2009. And I guess maybe I need some more information, but I'm still not clear that these reserves are being depleted like they should. And also at the same time, we've talked about this before in other council meetings, but about maybe greater ways of having efficiency out there at the landfill. And so because of that, I'm not going to be voting for this increase.
Okay, further comments? Seeing none, we've got a motion been made and seconded. So all those in favor, vote yes. Those opposed, no.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Staggers.
No.
All members present have voted. 6 yes, 1 no, and 1 excused. Item 17 has been approved. Item 18.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city, revising sewer utility rates and charges.
Mayor and City Council, as we've talked, we do have Steve Burrian here that we can really talk again about if there's questions on approach or assumptions for both the Water Reclamation Enterprise Fund, but also the water. Just as a review from the Water Reclamation, this is an 18% rate increase this year. As we look at it, if you used 7,500 gallons of water, your monthly bill would increase by $357. Again, I think we can take pride in many ways that we've got a very good supply that comes from a good aquifer. We've got very competitive water rates that, as we look locally in our state, but also regionally, and again, in many cases, these utilities, we're in the lower quartile of how we rank with others. And so, again, if you have any questions, we can certainly address.
Questions of Mark on item number 18? Go ahead, Kirk.
Yes. Mark, in the past, when we've had these increases, one of the important selling factors has been, hey, we need the increases because of Lewis and Clark. So for the increases for 2009, how much of this is really going for Lewis and Clark?
I'll have Steve come up and speak to that as we talk. We'll also pull up the graphic that we normally talk about that shows the respective areas of the analysis.
Steve Burrian with the West, Mayor Munson, Councilmember Staggers. I believe we're on the water reclamation utility, which is the wastewater utility, and Lewis and Clark is your redundant supply for water. And so, without being disrespectful, the specific answer to your question is 0 for this utility, but there will be some for the next one.
Okay, let me. You're absolutely right, because I was looking at another chart here, and it was in different orders. So, well, why do we need this increase?
For water reclamation?
Yes. Now, in the past, we've talked about, once again, the reserves. We often talk about that.
It's okay if I continue to answer? Absolutely. Mayor Munson, Councilmember Staggers, I guess anytime you look at utility increase, it's a combination of factors from increasing operating costs, which your utility manager does a very good job of maintaining those increases at somewhere near the inflationary rate. Most utilities, however, are going to struggle with capital. And in your case, with the rapid growth of the community and some of the rehabilitation needs at the wastewater treatment plant, you have a pretty aggressive capital plan, and that you almost always look at these utilities and say that they choke on capital, because that's the part that's the most significant. We have put together a plan, as shown on the graphic here, to put 2 fund reserves for the utility. But if I can draw your attention to 2009, or from 2008 to 2009, you notice that the green bar up there represents unrestricted cash within your utility. So despite implementing a 19% rate increase last year at our recommendation, you can see that you only increased your cash by just a couple $100,000 for the projected performance in 2009. So in terms of funding reserves, yes, we have a recommended, what we feel, prudent plan over the long haul, but the specific actions that we're asking you to take tonight are doing very little to generate cash for the reserves, because we have other needs within the utility that need to be met. And if we look backwards one year, we spent $1 million of our cash, and so that was the reason for the drastic 19% increase, and we did another 18% to create kind of an even keel within the water reclamation utility.
If I could ask Mark, because I'm looking at a lot of these figures from what you sent us by an email. And we have down a reserve for 2007, $3.2 million. Then we have forecasted for this year $2.4 million. And then for 2009, $3.3 million. And our reserve target is 25%, or in other words, $2 million.
I'll certainly address that. I think one of the things to be consistent, this request for this table came to me on Thursday, and so to be consistent with the variables, we can speak to you about that this is one component of the reserve, and if I could use a pointer. Here we go. Here's see where the cursor's at. That's the consistent piece to be consistent with the other utilities across the board. Steve will also talk to you about this utility. That's fine, I got a pointer there. About the other targets that are there that are shown in brown and in red. But you'll see that the blue does have a target of $2 million. And Steve, if you want to add to what those other reserve components are.
Yeah, Councilman Staggers, the $2 million that's cited in the memorandum that you received from Mark is this blue line right here at $2 million that grows a little bit over time as your utility expenses increase. That's the operating reserve of 25% of your operating. And then what we've done is we've recommended 2 additional reserves for this utility. One, a rate stabilization reserve, which is the difference between this blue line and the brown line. And then another reserve that we recommended is a capital reserve which is the difference between this brown line and this red line. This difference right here is 5% of your operating budget and your total debt service for the year, as we've recommended it. And then this one is actually based on 15% of your capital improvements plan is the difference right here. And as you get into water, you're going to see that we have an operating reserve for water, we have a rate stabilization reserve for water, but we don't have a capital reserve for water. The reason we don't have a capital reserve for water is the Lewis and Clark project was such a significant chunk for you to bite off, and really was a replenishment of or was a capital infusion into your utility that gets passed on to Lewis and Clark. And so in working with your staff, we felt it was irresponsible to try to build a reserve and fund Lewis and Clark simultaneously. The other thing I'll point out here, if I may, is that these blue dollars right here are restricted reserve dollars that were set up by the United States Environmental Protection Agency. They're very specific in how they can be spent, and so in recent years you haven't had a lot of chance to spend that. But looking forward, as your facility gets older, you can see that Trent is programming some pretty significant uses of the blue as it decreases. What we wanted to do was to try to replenish that fund, but we didn't want to replenish that fund in a restricted way because then we wouldn't have unrestricted access to it. And so the difference between the brown and the red is actually meant to replenish the blue in an unencumbered way for the City of Sioux Falls Water Reclamation Division.
Thanks, Steve. Other questions of Steve on item number 18? Others that wish to address the council on item number 18? Not. Council discussion or action on 18?
I move for approval of item number 18.
Knutson moves. Is there a second?
Second, Benninger.
Benninger seconds. Further comments on the motion have been made and seconded to approve item 18. See none, so all in favor of the motion to approve item 18 will vote yes. Those opposed vote no.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Staggers.
No.
All members present voted 6 yes, 1 no, and 1 excused. Item 18 has been approved. Item 20.
Item 19.
19 to me.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by increasing water rates.
Mayor Munson, members of the City Council, moving from water reclamation over to water purification. You saw a very similar presentation for this utility given its relationship to water reclamation. And as we look at the bottom line for 2009, we are recommending a rate increase on the residential side of about 14.5% a year. If you're a user within the community that uses 7,500 gallons on average, that would result in a $3.16 increase per month, or for a total water charge for 7,500 gallons of $24.95. Any questions that I may ask?
Questions of Steve on item number 19? Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Steve, I'll ask you this question for water purification on Lewis and Clark. If a citizen asks, okay, this rate increase we're having, how much of this is really due to Lewis and Clark?
Mayor Munson, Councilmember Staggers, the Lewis and Clark bond payment for 2009 is $3.1 million. I guess you want a percentage or?
Yes.
Preemptive strike, I guess. The total utility revenue requirements for water purification, I guess some of that's debt. Let me look at it a little different way. The total applicable rate revenue projected for 2009 is $2.7 million. So if I can do a little bit of round math and take 3.1 divided by 22.7, that's about a 13.7% of the revenue. And so if 14.45% is our increase, it would appear that the majority of the increase for this particular year could be credited to the Lewis and Clark involvement.
Okay.
Further questions of Steve on item number 19? Others that wish to address the council on item 19? Not. Is there council discussion or action on item 19?
Move for approval, Benninger.
Benninger moves. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
Brown seconds. Further comments? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess on this one here, I know everybody on the council and also everybody in the city is concerned about the Lewis and Clark, making sure we get water here by 2012. And, on these other funds, we've talked about reserves and CIP and all this kind of stuff, but this seems quite clear that we can say honestly that this is for, the overwhelming majority is for Lewis and Clark, and so I'll be voting for this.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? I've got a motion been made and second for item 19. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve item 19 will vote yes. Those opposed vote no.
Council members Anderson.
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Costello.
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
All members present have voted, 7 yes, 1 excused. Item 19 has been approved. Item 20.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by increasing permitted front foot street assessments.
Mayor Munson, City Council, just to address our last piece of our rate package, there is a resolution that corresponds later with respect to this item. But again, this is a 5-year program. We're in the 5th year, and this would recommend to increase the street frontage fee from 90 cents per front foot to $1. And we're certainly here to answer any of your questions.
Questions of Mark on item number 20. Go ahead.
Yes, Mark. Last week I asked Galen if maybe in the near future we're going to modify this and continue this program in the future. I mean, this is a tax increase. So I guess I'm just asking the same question as I asked Galen last week. Can we anticipate further frontage taxes for future years like this?
We're certainly going to conduct a thorough analysis this fall. One of the things that, again, this is for the calendar year 09, and so additional revenue through this source wouldn't be till 2010. You guys have certainly been a part of a fairly significant increase in our preservation program and also how we manage the streets. And so I can certainly assure you that we'll be bringing you back a study that will address your question.
Further questions on item number 20?
Yeah.
Go ahead, excuse me.
Yes, I was thinking that the city council passed this 5-year plan of the 10 cents, not Mark Cotter. So I'm just saying, aren't we just following through what we said ourselves?
Go
ahead, Kermit.
We don't have to vote for this tonight. We had a goal.
Right. No, I totally agree with you.
And we don't have to pass this tonight.
Yes. I totally agree with you, Councilor Staggers, on that. It was just a friendly reminder that we set this this program, not Mark Cotter. That's all I was saying. But I totally agree we can skip this year if we want to.
And just to clarify, not everybody was involved in voting for that program.
That's a real surprise to me.
Okay. Further comments on item number 20? Mark. Others that wish to address the council on item number 20? Not. Is there council discussion or is there a motion to approve?
I move for approval of item number 20, Knutson.
Knutson moves. Is there a second?
Second, Jameson.
Jameson seconded. Further comments on the motion to approve? Okay, go with Kermit and then Kenny.
Okay. Yeah, this one here is called a front footage assessment. It's just front footage tax is all it is. Yeah, as Diaz pointed out, this has been passed a number of years in a row, a little 10-cent increase each year. I think we can probably anticipate in the future we're going to continue with this tax increase. And it's unfortunate because we really shouldn't be having this tax frontage at all because we had the second penny. And we've mentioned this before on the City Council that during the late 1980s, the City Commission at that time talked about the second penny. We need a second penny. We need a second penny. And, of course, it was to be temporary, but then it became permanent. And the second penny was, devoted to streets. And that's what we should be doing, devoting more of the second penny to streets instead of having this tax increase.
Kenny?
Yeah. Mark, to you and your department, I think you've done a great job putting things together, and I know we'll probably be discussing this again next year. The only suggestion that I'd like to make is with these capital outlays, that's the type of information I really think the council needs to hear about when you're coming in with these ideals or with these outlays, so that when we go out to the public, we can explain it to the public to why we're approving these. Thank you.
Further comments on the motion to approve item 20? We've got a motion been made and seconded. Seeing no further comments, all in favor of the motion to approve, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Benega,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Staggers.
No.
All members present voted 6 yes, 1 no, and 1 excused. Item 20 has been approved. Item 21.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations.
Gene Roanhorst, Director of Finance. This is a collection of supplemental appropriations in the CIP that was approved last week by the CIP committee. We have $150,000 that involves parks. The $1.6 million is public works, dealing with the flood system, the levees around the city. And then we have two items, $10,000 and $50,000, which are grants from Citibank. We do have people here from each department. If you want any more detail on exactly what these are, I'll answer any questions we can.
Questions? Go ahead, Pat.
Gene, you indicated that the committee had voted on this. Could you tell us who was present and the voting, and who actually voted?
I was not there at that meeting. I don't have the minutes with me.
Further questions? If not, let's move to item 22.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by changing the definition of living ground cover.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Jeffrey Schmidt, representing planning staff this evening. For item number 22, we are amending our ordinance in regards to living ground cover. Currently, it discusses bluegrass, and we've worked with forestry and extension agents to change it to red fescue.
Questions of Jeff on 22? Go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, once again, this is just changing it to turf grass, right?
That's correct. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Prairie grass, that's going to be turf grass or not?
I'd have to check with the city forester on that, but from my understanding, that turf grass is easier to determine when they're out there in the field than it was the bluegrass.
Yes, but I mean, is prairie grass going to be under turf grass, as part of turf grass?
I would have to check with the city forester on that. I am not the city forester. I don't do the enforcement aspect when they're out in the field.
Okay. It seems like it would be, wouldn't it? I don't know.
Other questions on 22? Let's go to 23.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rescinding the 1998 subdivision regulations of the City of Sioux Falls, Ordinance 18-98, and adopting the 2008 revised subdivision regulations of the City of Sioux Falls.
One of the significant tools that the planning and the engineering department uses is the subdivision ordinance. Over the last 2.5 years, we've been bringing the subdivision ordinance through the Infrastructure Review Advisory Board to get an adopted copy that's feasible for the development community as well as the public. Subdivision is really the proposals to how to develop your land and get your infrastructure to connect. There's 2 sections of it. The first section of the subdivision is the process that they go through to do these things. The second aspect of the subdivision is the standards they have to meet. I think we've done a very good job working with the community and going through Infrastructure Review Advisory Board for 2.5 years, basically every other month or every other week, to get the issues addressed. And we will have people at the next meeting discussing in support of this issue.
Questions of Jeff on item 23, Kermit?
Yes, in regard to this new ordinance, is it going to take less time to get something approved?
Yes, it is.
Jeff, can you give us an estimate? I mean, I mean, I've heard, different times people going to the city for different projects. In the past, it would take 6 months. Now it's a year. And so can you give us some kind of sense how long this might take?
No, I can't give you a specific sense, but I can give you some facts from the ordinance itself. In the past, the existing ordinance says the preliminary plans have to be submitted. We'll review them based on staff comments, and in time, based on the staff comments, they would be submitted to Planning Commission and City Council for review. Now there's specific dates in there that they will submit them. If they get us all the submittals that are listed in this table, you have to get us these things, you will be scheduled for a public hearing. You will be having items in front of you that applicants may get up here and go, we don't agree with staff on certain items, but they will have a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions to Jeff on item number 23, Pat?
Jeff, IRAB hasn't taken a formal vote on this yet, or is that what they have?
They have. After 2.5 years, they voted on May 21st to approve it unanimously. Yep.
Further questions of Jeff on item 23? Let's go to 24.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a major amendment petition number 2008-0502 to Chapter 15.45.070, Planned Development Districts at Meadows on the River, Planned Development District, amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Thank you. This item is, again, a major amendment, which is basically a land use change in Meadows on the River. It's in front of the Clubhouse Suites in Johnny Carino's, where they'd like to open a coffee shop / wine bar.
Questions of Jeff on item 24? Let's go to 25.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a major amendment petition 2008-05-12 to Chapter 15.45.070, Planned Development Districts at 57th Street, West Planned Development District, amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is in the 57th Street West Planned Development District. It's west of Louise, south of 57th Street, about 59th Street. They're planning to build a Hilton Garden Inn of approximately 100 rooms in their Planned Development District. When the first original property owner brought it in, they did commercial, but they excluded hotels. I don't think back when they originally brought in this development, they saw this area as a need for hotel motels. Obviously, times have changed. The major amendment will allow a hotel, a banquet facility, and an on-sale facility, because it's going to be a banquet facility.
Questions of Jeff on item 25? Let's go 26.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at East 57th Street and South